G'day, Josh here, and today I'm going to be talking about the auction house. I'm going to break it down into 4 parts, sort of an overview of what the auction house is, the bot, and what exactly it is and what it does, selling, and also price caps, which sort of is incorporated into selling. I'm not really going to be talking about buying because that hasn't changed. If you see something on an auction house and you want to buy it, you spend the coin and you do so. That's pretty straightforward. Now, the auction house in season 1, and even at the start of this season, was broken down into 3 distinct auction houses. Auction house 1, 2, and 3. There was an easy way to figure out what auction house you were on. If you had a league mate that really wanted a card you had, you could list it and they could buy it and you'd be able to see cards on the same auction house. That's not the case anymore. From experience and from chatting with people, it seems that anything you list for sale, if the bot is interested in posting a version of that, the bot will list it to any of the 3 auction houses, and there's no real way of knowing what auction house you're on. So it doesn't even make sense to consider it as 3 separate auction houses anymore. Just think of it as one big auction house that you can roughly see a third of at any point in time. Now, what is the bot? The bot is the updated middleman to manage the selling and buying of cards on the auction house, essentially. It's a little bit more complex than that, and we really don't know all of the inner workings, but there are some things that are pretty straightforward. One of those is that any card that you sell, so if I go into the sell thing here, if I drag a card in, that Gary Payton, if I hit sell, I list a starting bid and a buy now price and post it. If you were to then see a card that was listed in the auction house, it would not be my card. The bot buys from humans and humans buy from the bot. There's no human to human interaction anymore on the auction house. So any card that you see on the auction house has been listed by the bot. And fun fact, we call the bot Barney in our league just to keep it fun. So Barney sells to humans and humans sell to Barney. So any card that you're posting in this sell items screen, you are selling to the bot. Now, I'm not 100% sure on what influences the bot to buy your particular card, but often it seems like what happens is that when you post a card for sale, the bot will then often post a clone of your card, and it will alter the bid and the buy now prices marginally. I'll talk about that in a second. Somewhere on the auction house, so you may or may not see it, as I spoke about earlier. It might be in one of the 2 auction houses you're not on, so you may not see the clone of your card. And then often if someone buys that clone from the bot, then the bot might buy your card. That's not always the case. Sometimes I've listed a card for sale, I've seen the clone up in my auction house, clearly tell it's my card because the amount of change to the bid and buy price matches sort of a little formula I've come up with, and the time stamp matches exactly, and then I see it get sold and then my auction expires and never gets touched by the bot. So it's not foolproof, but it's just a general guide. Now, let's say I was to list this Gary Payton for 500 as a starting bid, and 1,000, and my app just crashed. Let's restart that. While it's restarting, I'll just continue talking. So if I was listing that Gary Payton for 500 as a bid price and 1,000 as a buy now price, obviously I wouldn't because that's way undervalued, but just as an example and to keep the mathematics pretty straightforward. Generally what happens is the bot will list, if he's listing a clone, he will list it at roughly 5% less in terms of the bid price. So we'll go back to the sell. So selling Gary Payton, if I'm selling him for 500 and the bot posts a clone, you will often see a 5% reduction. So 5% of 500 is 25. So the bot would probably list it for around 475 coins. And if I was selling it for 1,000, the bot generally increases it around 10%. So therefore, the bot would list it at 1,100. So you would see that, or someone on one of the auction houses would see that from the bot's clone, but you yourself if you sold it to the bot, would be selling it at somewhere between the bid price of 500 and the buy price of 1,000. So there's a little bit of price shuffling that goes on there in terms of the bot and acting as a middleman. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but it doesn't really matter too much anyway. But it is also important to keep in mind that there are price caps depending on the overall of the particular card. Now, I don't know if there are price caps on platinum cards, but if we go down to something that's a little bit lower, say this 88 Kevin Garnett, well, the maximum you can list him for is 4 million. And as the overall reduces, so does the price cap. So if you get down to an 80 overall card, 400,000 is the max you can list. Now keep in mind that the bot will list clones at up to 10% more. So you might see 80 overall cards for 440 or 450K in the auction house, but that's because the bot is adjusting that price. I will actually leave a link to a forum post I put together on nbalive.gg in the description below. If you're someone that uses the auction house to buy or to even to sell or to even buy, I should say, because if you're investing and doing things like that, just generally having fun in the auction house, it's important to have an understanding of what these price caps are so you don't cost yourself money. And you really do want to know what they are when selling, because if you sell anything that's over a price cap for that particular overall, then it's never going to be shown by the bot and he'll never be interested in it. So make sure to check out that link in the description. I think that's it. I've pretty much covered everything I know in terms of how the bot and the auction house work now. So yeah, it's different from season 1, but now that it's had a lot of time to for us to wrap our heads around the changes, and even though we don't fully understand it, it's definitely brought the prices down. I remember there would be rare 91 overall cards at the start of this season that were instantly selling for $99 million, which was ridiculous. The inflation in the auction house was ruining the game for everyone. Cards are much more reasonable in terms of price, which means that everyone has wider access to getting new and exciting cards. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, despite not fully understanding how it works. Thanks for watching the vid. Hope it helped. If it did, give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more.